Lucy, we're back.
Sort of last time, not really last time, but kind of the last time.
Yes, maybe second to last episode. We haven't recorded in a while because we've been sick, we've been traveling, the show was dark for a couple weeks, the holidays, etc., etc. We don't really have a plan for this show. We're just gonna vibe about the playoffs. There's one game left of the college football season. It's the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Since the last time we talked, there's been about 60 bowl games. They were all awesome. There's been a dozen playoff games. I would contend that they were all awesome too. And we're gonna talk about all of that. But where would you like to start? What's been on your mind these last few weeks?
Oh my God. Well, honestly, I wish we could just take the full 30 minutes to just talk about Bret Bielema and what's up with him. His whole drama. How awesome was that? Everyone's saying bowl season doesn't mean anything. Well, Bret Bielema is starting fights in the middle of games.
It
means everything.
He's angrily doing the T signal to signal, fair catch. He was just like not happy at all in that Citrus Bowl game against South Carolina. And I think, we had a good idea of who was going to win the Jennifer Awards before Christmas, but there was so much juicy content and drama during bowl season that now I think we're going to have to rethink everything. Bret Bielema's got to win a Jenny Award.
I feel like we should rename the awards after him.
The birdies.
You said something I got to push back on. You said he didn't seem happy. He was laughing his ass off at Shane Beamer losing his mind.
That's true.
It was so
Shane
just
Beamer was the one that was being a little pouty.
Oh, and he's still been pouty. He was pouty online for the next 4 days. While Bert is just basking in the glow of the Orlando sun.
Okay, maybe we give our Coach of the Year award. We rename it the Bert of the Year.
Oh, I love it.
And
yes.
he's definitely the clubhouse favorite to win that one. But yeah, the Citrus Bowl was phenomenal. The Idaho Potato Bowl was phenomenal. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma and Navy. I mean, there were obviously the Pop-Tart Bowl, Iowa State and Miami. There were so many good games. I think there's been a lot of discourse about the SEC and all these different conferences and the ACC's record in bowl season and all that since bowl season ended. What do you make of the bowl games? Is there anything that we should take away from them other than here's 40 free games for everyone to enjoy? Just shut up and have fun.
I can't remember who published it, but bowl ratings, TV viewership for bowl games was higher this year than maybe it's ever been. I don't know. Higher than it has been in recent memory. People are watching bowl games because people like bowl games. And now that you see bowls like Pop-Tart and the Mayo Bowl, really kind of dive into the absurdity of college football and the absurdity of bowl season, you're creating this super fun atmosphere. And who cares? Let these kids have an extra game at the end of the year. Go to Orlando. Let them go to Universal Studios. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, the bowl games averaged 2.7 million viewers for the 33 non-CFP bowl games this season, tied for 21-22 for the best figure since 2.9 million in the 1920 season. 22 of the 33 saw year-over-year gains. So yeah, I mean, bowl season alive and well. If you're there's too many bowls, they're not going anywhere. People watch them. They're awesome. I had one of the greatest weekends of my life, several great weekends in a row, I should say, watching bowl games into NFL games, into college football playoff games, back into bowl games. It was just nonstop football from 11 a.m. until midnight every single night, past midnight if you stayed up for the Las Vegas Bowl. What a comeback from the USC Trojans. So yeah, I'm with you. Just have fun. Football's fun. We like watching.
Yeah. It's such a stupid argument. It just makes me, okay, argue with the cloud. I literally don't give one shit. We saw a Pop-Tart get eaten. It arose out of a toaster, and life has forever been different. Just go outside.
I did think it was a little jarring seeing Rocco Becht sentence that specific Pop-Tart to death. They were like, which Pop-Tart do you want to eat? And it was literally a death sentence. It was very scary. I think it was the cinnamon one. And then they just killed him on the spot and ate him. That was kind of alarming.
Look, the 800 points they scored in that game was alarming to me. I was already like, my senses were very disoriented at the time. There was so much going on.
Yeah, and we got to avoid all of the Cam Ward discourse because we didn't have an episode that week. So that's probably for the best because, man, there's one thing that there's been a lot of these last few weeks. It's discourse. It's been, oh, my God, at Indiana, what a bunch of losers. The SEC is so much better than everyone else as every SEC team loses their playoff games. You were at the first Texas home playoff game, the Clemson game, which was, for some reason, everyone was like, every game was a blowout. They all stunk. That game, Lucy, was like pretty exciting. What was your reaction to watching that one?
That game was very much just like sweep the leg, just finish it. What are you doing? Like it was very much like, okay, great. Texas is up by 20. Like life is easy. And then Cade Klubnik was like, hey, guess what? I've decided to be the best quarterback you've ever seen. And you're like, Texas, just stop him. Just stop him one time. And they would not do it. It was a very much like, it was very exciting. Like it had the aura of a playoff game. Something that I think is really interesting was we ended up like getting tickets for this game and they were very cheap compared to like when we would go to Georgia, Alabama during the regular season. They were very cheap. It was very accessible to go to the game, which I thought was phenomenal. But yeah, it was like the vibes were high. Texas should have kind of finished Clemson a lot earlier on in that game. They just kept letting them hang around, but it was a good time. I had a lot of fun at Texas, and I really like their fight song. I think it's quite good.
The reaction I had watching that was like not what I expected to have about Clemson this season, which was you probably feel pretty good if you're a Clemson fan going into next year. Like they just hired Tom Allen, who left Penn State, which I think is really interesting to be the new defensive coordinator at Clemson. They got some shit together by the end of the season. Like, it wasn't pretty. Like, the South Carolina game was not pretty, but I do think South Carolina was, obviously one of the two best teams they played this season between them and Georgia. But I don't know. I feel like if you're a Clemson and now you're finally dipping your toes into the portal, you probably have some good vibes going into 2025.
Yeah, they've been using the portal like crazy. And you look at the ACC, things feel kind of wide open. I don't know. Carson Beck being in the equation, that either makes you feel better or worse. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Carson Beck either. Because like he's going to be coming off a major arm surgery. But at the same time, like, yeah, he probably is better than whoever Miami has in their quarterback room at the moment. So I don't know what to make of that.
Who knows?
We'll find out.
Congrats on dating a Cavender. Good for you, brother. It works out in the end. But yeah, Clemson's got to be feeling pretty good right now. In that game, they played a lot better than I thought they would. Run defense is terrible, though. Jesus.
Yeah, Texas was just running the ball all over them. I was at the Notre Dame-Indiana game, which I thought was awesome. And I've already sort of talked about this on air, but like going from like, what a fun game. Amazing. I love it so much. That was so fun. The first ever college football playoff game at a home stadium. What a cool atmosphere. College football is the greatest. To then going online and every take was like, this game sucked and was shitty and a dud and we all hate Indiana and they should die. And I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that reaction. I thought we were all kind of like, I thought maybe the reaction would be like, wow, Notre Dame's really good. But instead it was like, Indiana, screw you. And now the last two teams left standing in college football are the two teams that beat the Indiana Hoosiers this season. So were you, as a Big Ten fan, sad to see everyone take their turn taking dumps on Indiana after that game?
I mean, yeah, it was one of those things where I really love that you brought that up because I was curious. I was like, I wonder if people at the game thought it sucked so much because I think a big reason of why everyone hated the expanded playoff that first round is because everybody wouldn't shut up about how much they hated the expanded playoff in the first round. It's hard for me to buy into a game when the announcers are talking about how much this game sucks. Stinks. And how much they wish that it was an Alabama team there that ended up losing to Michigan in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Like, be so serious right now. I think the biggest there are a lot of problems with the playoff. We can fix the seeding, conference championships, the buys. They're all a little weird. That will work itself out. But the biggest immediate problem with the playoff is everybody needs to shut up about how much they hate it because it's really not that bad. And we've had 2 solid rounds and my dog is barking.
That's okay. Your dog is agreeing with you. And I also like, if Kevin Jennings hadn't just completely melted down in the first half, like that also could have been a better game. But like, it's the playoffs. There's nerves involved. Penn State's defense is obviously top 5 defense in the country this year. I thought that the opening round games, they were what you would expect watching better teams play worse teams in the first round of a playoff. Like the good teams tend to beat the not as good teams, and that's why they got to host the games in the first round. And it kind of worked out that way.
No one's blowing smoke because of the NFL like first round of the playoff. Wild card weekend, you had a lot of blowouts there, and everyone's fine because that's what's expected. No one loses their mind in March Madness when
when all the 16 seeds lose.
It just is like the seeding was done that way for a reason. I do think that if I have an issue like Oregon being the only undefeated team this season, having such a great year, and then getting the draw of playing Ohio State in their first playoff game, I would not be a happy camper if that were me. So I do think there's problems with the seeding, but like overall, just it's really fine. It's really okay.
I would also
we're happy now.
Exactly. I would love to see the quarterfinals on campus sites too. I think like if you could rework the whole thing, personally, I would get rid of conference championship games in general. If you're a fan, first of all, there's very limited circumstances in which you travel for one of them, unless you're like an Indiana fan and they're in the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. Like Oregon fans aren't going to fly across the country for that if they're going to be in the Fiesta Bowl or the Rose Bowl like in 2 weeks. So from like a fan perspective, and like I know they're never going to get rid of conference championship games because they get great ratings. Obviously, I'm just saying like if I could tweak things, I would just get rid of those, start the playoffs a week earlier, have quarterfinal games on campus in the week that the first round games were, and then have the semifinals on New Year's Day because A, they get way better ratings. That's a humongous college football day. And B, I just think it makes more sense. But I digress. The quarterfinals were also, I thought, really awesome. And just because, like, I'm basically just throwing shade at Stugotz in this whole segment and refuting everything I've heard him say over the last, like, month. Because he was like, Boise State and Penn State, boo, that stinks. No, that game was really
a good game.
Really good, I thought. The only game that really stunk was Oregon and Ohio State, which we all, like, this is how big of an idiot and everyone else is, like, in the whole world, including me. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the best game of the playoffs. Like, this was a 1-point game during the regular season. It's going to be so good. No, Lucy.
I spent my own money to travel to that game to watch it.
Oh no!
I was so embarrassed.
You should try
I was
to
so embarrassed. I was like sitting in the press box, just being like, "Okay, I guess I have to play Sudoku now." Like I have really no idea what to do. Like it was so bad. That game was over so quickly that I was getting my own Rose Bowl flashbacks. That I was like, I gotta leave. I gotta get out of here.
Oh no.
Yeah, but the rest of the games were great. I mean, Texas, Arizona State.
That was awesome.
God,
yes,
that ruled so hard. And like, I think you can. The Texas Ohio State game was really good. It obviously kind of came down to that one horrible play call when Texas is trying to score late in the game, but if that targeting call had been made in Arizona State, Texas, which I believe it was targeting, do I know what targeting is necessarily? Not particularly.
It reminded me of the end of the Cal-Miami game. I was like, I thought I knew what it was, but I guess there's a huge difference between the crown and like next to the crown. I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't make, we have to do something with the helmets. So we have to put an X on the helmet, and when it hits that, that's when you know.
Put ink on them. So like if you hit someone, there's a little stamp.
Yeah, like get a little insurance person there who can, like, when they go to a car accident, they can tell who's at fault. So you get the two helmets and you look at them. If that call had gone differently, we probably would have had Arizona State, Ohio State, which I do think would have been probably a worse game. But like, that was the cool part of the playoff is Arizona State would not have made the playoff in any other year. Notre Dame might not have made the playoff in any other year with that loss. Ohio State might not have made the playoff with 2 losses. Like, it's exciting to see that, like, expanding it. I do believe that the 2 best teams are playing in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Except for a hypothetical SEC team would beat them all.
Hypothetically, Alabama would beat both of these teams by 3 touchdowns. And Taylor, for some reason, is like an Alabama fan, so he's like fist pumping. We're kidding, okay? God, it's so annoying.
Sad.
I'm with you. I think that the biggest difference between this championship game and any previous championship game is that there's no good argument to say, well, Ohio State, they lost to Michigan, so they shouldn't be in this championship game. Or Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They shouldn't be. Notre Dame had to play the Big Ten runner-up, the SEC champion, and a top 4 Big Ten team to get to the championship. Ohio State had to play a top 4 SEC team, the Big Ten champion, to avenge their loss in the regular season, and the SEC runner-up to get to this championship game. They both had really difficult draws in the playoff. There's no like asterisks. Like if Penn State had made it, it would have been like, oh, well, they had to play the G5 team and SMU and blah, blah, blah. Like I still wouldn't have agreed with that. But I think both of these teams in particular had really difficult paths to the championship game. So even if there is a lopsided championship, like we've seen in, I don't know, a half dozen of the last dozen championship games, it's like, well, what else can you ask for from a playoff? Both of these teams had to win 3 tough games in a row.
I believe there's some stat that like the average margin of victory in the Super Bowl or in the NFL playoffs is like 30-13. I'm making it up. But it's in the vicinity of that. But we don't lose our minds over it. But when it comes to college football, you're like, if every game isn't a one-score game, then this is
it's a bad game,
system.
Right? Or if every game
happens.
doesn't hit like a 55-point total, it's like that was bad. And it's like, okay, wait a second. I don't agree with that. Yeah, you wouldn't understand. Defense is cool, actually. But I'm with you. I thought that the semifinal games, I was at the Orange Bowl, or you were at the Orange Bowl too, right? We didn't see each other. That I have only bad things to say about Hard Rock Stadium.
I did not have the best time of my life, I'll say that.
It was so hard to get around that place on foot, by car, by sea, whichever vehicle or however you were getting around. Just, it was not easy. Plastic and our queso, which I've documented on my social media. Anyways, an all-time classic though. Like, holy shit, was that a crazy third and fourth quarter. James Franklin's obviously getting slammed for, once again, not being able to win a top 5 game. But at the same time, all of Penn State's players are coming back next year, except for like a couple big ones, like Abdul Carter, for instance. But do you feel good if you're a Penn State fan at the end of the season?
I think you feel like you've always felt. I think that Penn State is very just. I'll have to look at Penn State's schedule and see if they play Ohio State.
Their non-conference is very easy next year.
Yeah, I assume so. But if they're playing Ohio State during the regular season, then I don't feel great. Yeah, I think there was a lot of like. I have a few questions just about like when Drew Aller came out for that final drive, I looked at Harry and I said, he is dying to throw in a double coverage. He's going to do it, like without a doubt. And if I knew what he was going to do, then James Franklin should have known what he was going to do. Not getting the wide receivers involved at all. 0 catches, 0 yards, just a big fat 0 for Penn State's receivers. You feel good because you got to the semifinals. You are considered one of the 4 best teams in college football this year, but we still see that there is such a gap between 4 and 1, where if you're looking at Ohio State, Penn State, like those teams play every year and we know there's a big gap in between those two. So like, I feel good. I just don't feel like super duper rock and roll. I feel like yacht rock.
I would feel not great about Drew Aller, I think. That was, I think, the biggest bummer from the semifinal game was that he just didn't play well. Like you said, Lucy, they haven't thrown to their wide receivers like all season. But luckily, Tyler Warren's like the best tight end in college football, so he helps a lot. But yeah, Aller threw 3 picks. 2 of them obviously got called back, but the last one was an absolute dagger to Christian Gray, Notre Dame's DB corner extraordinaire, only a sophomore. Next year, Penn State has Nevada, FIU, and Villanova to open the season. But then they get Oregon. They have to play Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, and a couple other Big Ten, Nebraska, Rutgers, Michigan State.
Take it back. I feel bad.
Yeah, it might be tough next season once they get through the non-con, but I don't know. We'll see. I still think that they're always going to be a really good football team. They just they need to get over that hump, and they haven't yet. And James Franklin was negging Marcus Freeman during the press conference, and it totally backfired. He's like, "How old are you again?" And Marcus Freeman was like, "I'm 38." Didn't work.
And for what? For what, James?
And then he's like, you should join a conference. It's like, okay, well, we can't keep doing this. Notre Dame is 4-0 against the Big Ten in this season, so I can't.
I claim you all as a spiritual Big Ten team. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's gross. I don't want anything to do with that.
I think it's accurate.
I heard you talking shit on God Bless Football, but we don't have to talk about that either. Lucy,
that doesn't sound like me.
We're both going to be in Atlanta this weekend. What are your thoughts on the title game?
I like I said before, I really do think that the two best teams are playing in this game. The line right now, what Ohio State, as of recording,
It's
Ohio
8
State
points.
-8.5.
Okay.
I think that's kind of high. I'm not like counting out Notre Dame as much as everyone else is. I do think it would require Notre Dame putting together like an unbelievable football game, like close to perfect, where I kind of think that is possible because I don't think they played particularly well against Penn State. I thought the second half, those adjustments were phenomenal, but the first half, they were kind of ass. So to see Notre Dame sort of put together such a good half after that original just kind of stinker, I do think that Notre Dame's defense is good enough that if they can force Ohio State into these third down situations, and Ohio State sucks on third down, like they're really, really bad. That's their only glaring weakness on this team. That I think that if it's a close game, Notre Dame could win. But that's an if it's a close game. I think it goes close game, Notre Dame wins, or Ohio State blows them out.
Yeah, I think Ohio State definitely has the ability to just like do that knockout punch, right? Like so many of their passes this season have just been to wide open receivers that they're able to just scheme open. They've been playing so well in this postseason. Whereas, both teams have struggled with injuries on their offensive lines. Notre Dame lost their left tackle in the Orange Bowl. Their right guard got banged up. They're down 4 starting linemen. Their best player on defense, Benjamin Morrison, out for the season, who was really effective in covering Marvin Harrison Jr. last year when these two teams played each other. So I think you're right. I think like if Notre Dame can keep it close and play out of their minds, especially defensively, like this game could be really close. From a fan perspective, like this has been, the last 3 games have been so awesome. And I think Ohio State fans probably agree. Like it's been like winning postseason playoff football games is not a thing that ever existed in college football really until this season. Like we had semifinals and that was it. But now it's like you get the chance to win multiple New Year's Six bowl games in one season. You get the chance to play against teams that you never really play against in meaningful games in January and December. Being on the winning end of that is pretty cool. So no matter what, like either Notre Dame is the best team in the country and they win the national championship and I retire from my job and move to an island and never talk to anyone again because I will have no purpose in life anymore. My life will have been fulfilled. Or Notre Dame's the second best team in the country this year and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing now. So either way, like I'm at peace with it. I'm a happy little camper and I love college football so much. And it's been a fun season and I'm excited for the Jennies.
Jesus, I've seen what you've done for others and I want that for me.
That's what Taylor said too after the Orange Bowl. It's Notre Dame's been really good. And I love that I get to actually talk about Notre Dame because they're in the national championship. No one can be like, stop talking about Notre Dame. Okay, well, when your team is in the national championship, you can have the floor. Notre Dame has been a really good football team for the last decade, but they have not been able to win in the postseason. They've lost both of their semifinals when Brian Kelly was a head coach. Marcus Freeman's now won 2 New Year's Six games, 3 playoff games in like 3 weeks. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now. It's great. I love winning football games. I feel like I'm a part of it. Have you noticed the hating going down now that you have a super cool hot head coach? Oh yeah, I've seen so many national media outlets post the "Is Notre Dame likable now" thing, which I don't care if other fans like Notre Dame or not. That doesn't bother me because like I hate everyone else too. Like that's part of the sport, right? Like you hate everyone that you don't like and you like the people you like, and it's usually just your own team. The thing though that's annoying, like they're just doing the like, yeah, Brian Kelly's not the coach. Like that's fine. Like that's all that take should be because Notre Dame had some very likable players on all those like Kyron Williams, extremely likable. Kyle Hamilton, very likable. Ian Book, what a sweetie pie. Like there's so many likable players from those teams. So we're just doing the Brian Kelly, Marcus Freeman comparison thing, which is fine. I agree with it. Marcus Freeman's like 1 billion times more likable than Brian Kelly. But if fans are rooting against Notre Dame, that's fine. It's okay. I would be probably rooting against your team too.
It's an all-time hater matchup. Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Yeah, right.
Everyone's got someone to hate.
Oh, Michigan fans are like, I guess we're rooting for Notre Dame, but like this doesn't feel good.
I've heard that they're rooting for Ohio State. I've gone directly to the source to ask a few Michigan fans, hey, who are you rooting for? And they say, I got to root for Ohio State so that Ohio State can say they put together one of the best college football teams of all time and we still beat them. And I was like,
okay,
I
guess that makes sense. But like, I still find that hard to believe. I don't know. Like, that just doesn't seem right to me. You can't, like, I would never root for USC in a national championship game. Like, I just couldn't do that. It would
I think
make
it's
me
also
nauseous.
conference, even though both teams are spiritually or literally in the Big Ten. Geographically, should be in the Big Ten.
I love that college football goes to the Midwest, Lucy. I mean, that is something that I'm feeling great about this year. It's like, oh, all this talk about the SEC and SEC this and SEC, there should be 100 SEC teams in the playoff and blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Both of these teams in the championship, Indiana and Ohio, the heart of the Midwest, the heartland, if you will.
There's only one Big Ten team that lost to the SEC in the postseason, and they didn't mean to do it. It was an accident.
It
They
was
didn't mean
Iowa.
to. They were, I don't know. You'd have to look it up. I'm not going to do that, though, but I'm sure that they didn't mean to do it, and it was Nashville. There's, I don't know, something in the air.
Something crazy happened, and we'll talk about it maybe during the Jennies. Maybe the accidental loss of the season award. I don't know. Well, if you want us to talk about certain things from this bowl season or football season, send them to us on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram. We'll put it together. Next week will be our big award show finale. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, TikTok will be gone. I'll be able to really focus on it.
All right, Lucy. Well, see you in Atlanta.
Good luck. I want you to be happy.
I actually genuinely believe that,
I would hope so.
even though I heard you talking shit.